Welcome back. And so here we are to review the 10 later games. If you're looking for the 5 matinee games, I already did a review for that. And that's already been posted. A lot of action tonight and a few comebacks, which is standard in the National Hockey League now. We see them all the time. And you ask John Tortorella, he's got opinions about why those are happening. But let's start off with the Washington Capitals continuing what they do against the Boston Bruins. And I need to put up on the board. There we go. So, score tonight. We'll get to that. The Caps got a power play at 8 minutes and 3 seconds. Didn't score on that. Charlie Coyle then scored from Heinen and McAvoy at 11:32. But the shots were 14-7 for the Capitals. And in all honesty, they owned this game. They just had problems beating Halak. Those problems changed at 14-27 when Boyd scored from Karlsson and Leipzig. There's a late power play for the Bruins. Marchand and Wilson then were involved in the same scrum towards the end of that period. Keep in mind there were 6 games going on at the exact same time, and I did my best to track it, just like earlier today when there were 4 games on at the exact same time, and I was trying to track that as well. So it's 1-1 going into the second. Second period, Pastrnak scores from McAvoy and Krejci at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And the amazing thing about this is Boston didn't really deserve the lead. Washington was outplaying them. The Caps got a power play. The Bruins got one shortly after that. Wilson just missed the net with 1 minute and 10 seconds left. Halak has really been the story to this point in the game. Bruins get a power play with 15 seconds left in the second. So that leads over into the third period. The Bruins are trying for their second win in 16 games versus the Capitals. Didn't happen. The Capitals killed that power play to start the third. The shots were nearly 2-1 in the Capitals' favor through most of the game, and still in the third period, the shots were about 2-1 in favor of the Capitals. Wagner was drilled by Wilson. Wagner got up because he's tough enough to get up from that. There's others that wouldn't. Halak was really trying to drag the Bruins to a win. Krejci missed wide on a break that he had. Then there was a 4-on-4 with less than 6 minutes left. Could have been a power play, wasn't. Coyle breakaway was denied. And the Caps went to a power play unit 5-on-5. So before they pulled the goalie, they had their power play unit on the ice, which involves 4 forwards and a defenseman. I wonder if that'll be a thing at some point, where teams say, all right, we're going to try 4 forwards. We need to push for something late in a period, and you don't necessarily want to pull your goalie. Doesn't matter. They did pull the goaltender. So they pull the goalie, and while the goaltender's pulled with 1 minute and 20 seconds left, Oshie scores from Kuznetsov and Backstrom at 19:01, 59 seconds to go, and I'm like, yep, of course. And the Caps went for it. They still pressured after tying it, but we do go to overtime. In the overtime, Kuznetsov had a break that was stopped by Halak. Ovechkin had a shot that was deflected high, and we go to the shootout. Shootout, Jacob Vrana, and that's the winner. The Capitals with a shootout victory 3-2 over the Boston Bruins. Holtby saved 21 out of 23. Halak saved 42 out of 44. Your 3 stars are McAvoy, Oshie, and Halak. The shots were 18-9 in favor of the Caps in the first, 12-6 in favor of the Caps in the second, 11-6 in favor of the Caps in the third, and 3-2 in favor of the Capitals in the overtime to make the shots 44-23. Capitals 0-2 on the power play. Boston 0-3. So for Boston, it's a loss. It's a shootout loss, but they're still struggling to put some wins together at this stage of the season. Next up, Ottawa. So the Senators went into Buffalo tonight, and they showed Buffalo that they are a team capable of staying in games. They're apparently not capable of stopping Eichel. There was an early power play for the Senators. Ullmark denied during the penalty kill. That being said, really, Ottawa's not known for having a power play. Anderson was really stealing the first period, or so it seemed. In the second period, Eichel scores from Reinhart and Dahlin at 1 minute and 28 seconds. Ottawa gets a power play. Well, they don't score. Yeah, they do. Duclair from Logan Brown and Shabbat at 6:04, and they scored on the power play. Ottawa actually did it. But Eichel scores again from Olsen and Reinhart at 9:39, so it didn't remain tied for very long. Ullmark stopped Ennis on a really great chance. There was a last-second chance for the Sens, which did not go into the net. And going to the third, it's a 2-1 lead for Buffalo. But early, Ennis scores from Hainsey and Nemesnikov at 2 minutes and 1 second. So it's a tie game. And I put the Sabres need a sense of urgency. They really need that right now because they had lost, 6 in a row coming into this. And I said again, the pesky Sens don't go away. Eichel would then score from Skinner at 12-13. That's his hat trick. The second time in his career he'd done that. The Sabres tried to add another late. And then with the goalie pulled, Eichel scores into the empty net at 1946. The first time in his career he's had a 4-goal game. On the Ottawa side of things, Anderson saved 28 out of 31. Ullmark saved 21 out of 23. Your 3 stars are Eichel, Eichel, and Eichel. Not really. Eichel, Reinhart, and Skinner. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, there's been a lot of talk about how great his plus-minus is on a team that's not, a great plus-minus team. He was a -4 tonight. He had the unenviable task of trying to stop Jack Eichel. So not only does Buffalo score 4, all via Jack Eichel in this game, but they did it against Pageau, who's been one of the best defensive forwards for the season. So Eichel accomplished something pretty awesome tonight. Shots were 13-5 Buffalo in the first, 9-6 in favor of Ottawa in the second, 13-9 for Buffalo in the third. Final shots 32-23 for the Buffalo Sabres. Ottawa goes 1 for 3 on the power play, Buffalo 0 for 2. So that's unusual that Buffalo loses a special teams battle to Ottawa. But for the Sens, this begins, I think it's 9 out of 11, including this game that will be played on the road, and their road record isn't good. So while they're good at home, away from home, Ottawa has more struggles. And for Buffalo, this is what they needed. They needed to meet up with a weaker team and get that win, pad things out a little bit, and we'll see if they can build on this from tonight. That being said, moving along, New Jersey. This was a game that was really highly contentious at the end, and I'm sure there's Montreal fans that are not happy right now. First period, New Jersey was up 10-5 in shots halfway through the first period. And really, New Jersey controlled large portions of this game. Kincaid was really solid for the Habs as the shots became 14-5. But the first goal is Gallagher from Petrie and Tatar at 18:41. That's a late goal, that's key. And then Gusev responded 1 minute exactly later from Coleman and Zajac. So 19:41, we got a 1-1 tie going into the second period. The shots were 29-9 in favor of New Jersey, 24 minutes into the game. So they really had control. And I thought the refs were letting a lot go to that point in the game. That would change. Fleury got a goal from Danault at 7 minutes and 43 seconds. That's his first. And it was a pretty nice shot by Cale Fleury. Very impressive one. And Danault with a nice assist there. Fleury then made a great save at the other end of the ice on Hall. You're reading that right. Fleury made the save. It was an empty net, and he made the save. There was a late power play for the Habs. The Devils took another. That made it 5-on-3 for 1 minute and 29 seconds. Suzuki would score from Domi and Weber at 18:42. So Shea Weber continues his hot scoring ways. Power play goal, that was 5-on-3. That's the first ever power play goal for Nick Suzuki in the National Hockey League. Shorthanded, Hischier was denied by Kincaid. This is when it was a 5-on-4 after the 5-on-3 goal, but it didn't last. Hischier scored from Zacha at 19:58, so with 2 seconds left in the period, that was a 2-on-1. That's the same penalty that Hischier had a breakaway shorthanded and was denied. So it's the first shorthanded goal New Jersey's had all year, and it's the first one that Montreal's allowed all year. And Claude Julien didn't look very happy. There were parts of this game where they showed Claude Julien behind the net or behind the bench. He didn't look happy. Third period, New Jersey gets a 5-on-3. They didn't capitalize on that. Kincaid was still looking like he was ready to try to steal one. The Devils got another power play. We end up with a brief 4-on-3 for Montreal, and it seemed like endless power plays were just destroying the flow of the game. It forced coaches to change their lines and just created a sense of just complete discord within the game. Simmons would score from Hall and Hughes on the power play at 15:12. So that ties it up. And then the goal. Danault gets a goal that initially and on every replay, the announcers were like, that's a good goal. So they review it because it was in the last minute of the third period. It's an automatic review. Coach didn't call for it. It's just automatic. The NHL reviews goals that close to the end of the game. And they said no goal. He kicked it in. It went off his knee, I believe. And they said, all right, well, he propelled it into the net. Kneed it in. Kicking. So, yeah, the Montreal crowd wasn't happy. I'm sure New Jersey, who I don't think would have challenged it. That's the weird thing. I don't think New Jersey would have challenged it if that had been an option. And yet, it's no goal. We go to overtime. The Devils got a power play in overtime. And Julian looked just totally choked. And it was Danault who had apparently kicked the goal in, and then he was the one that took the penalty. New Jersey took a timeout. That turned out to be smart. Palmieri scored from Hall and Heischer at 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's a power play goal. They go into Montreal and stun that crowd with a 4-3 victory in overtime. Blackwood, 31 saves on 34 shots. Kincaid saves 39 out of 43. He was fantastic against his former team. 3 stars, Palmieri, Gusev, and Kincaid. I don't know how Gusev got second star here. I watched enough of this to say, really, Gusev gets second star? But anyways, I might have given it to Simmons for scoring the tying goal. Palmieri, I understand, with the winner. He sure as well. He sure had an excellent game, but okay, sure. Shots were 20-9 New Jersey in the first period. Second period, they were 14 apiece. In the third, 11-7 for Montreal. And in overtime, the Devils got both shots. Final shots, 43-34 in favor of the Devils. Power plays, New Jersey goes 2 for 6. Montreal 1 for 5. New Jersey had a really sleepy power play up until about a week ago. It does seem like it's waking up, and it's making a difference. So for Montreal, I'm sure that goal that wasn't a goal is going to be an issue, but I don't know. This was Toronto making that call. So we'll see what happens from here, but I didn't really penalize Montreal overall. You guys will see the power rankings later. I didn't really penalize them on this one. It was a good game overall. You can't allow 20 shots in the first, but Anyways, that being said, I have to change boards. All right, and that sound you hear is the furnace is kicked on down here, so thankfully, because it's cold in here, and as soon as that vent stops venting in the warm air, it gets really cold. Anyways, Florida at home tonight against the Rangers, and it looked like this game was going to have all of the goals in the first period. Hoffman scored from Yandel and Huberdeau at 2:05 on the power play. Strome answers 34 seconds later from Fast and Lindgren at 2:39. Another power play for Florida. They score again. Dadonov from Huberdeau and Yandel at 6:50. Less than 2 minutes later, Panarin scores from Strome at 8:47. That's 4 goals on 12 shots in this game combined. And I noticed that in the crowd in Florida, and we always talk about how there's some empty seats, there seemed to be less tonight than usual, and a lot of them seem to be occupied by people wearing New York Rangers gear. So it looks like either there's a lot of Rangers fans in that area, or there are Rangers fans that made the trip down to Florida and said, yeah, we'll fly down to Florida in November and catch a Panthers game. Second period, the Rangers take a lead. D'Angelo from Panarin and McKegg at 5:47. But 2 minutes later, Connolly scores from Boyle. 7 minutes and 51 seconds. Greg McKegg hit the post. And then after that, we get big saves at both ends of the rink. So both goaltenders kind of get it going. But before the end of the second period, Yandel scores from Huberdeau at 17:44. So it's 4-3 after 2. Now, interestingly enough, as the third period starts, they mentioned the New York Rangers are 0-6. They haven't won a game when they've been trailing at the start of the third period. So while we're in a time and an age where comebacks are completely expected, the Rangers, they don't do that kind of thing. The Panthers got a power play. That could potentially end it. The Rangers got a power play again. Their power plays were not effective in the third period, but the Florida Panthers bring it home. They won it 4-3. Lundqvist made 26 saves on 30 shots. Bobrovsky 30 saves on 33 shots. Incrementally, Bobrovsky is getting better. 3 stars are Huberdeau, Dadonov, and Yandel. All 3 of them from Florida. The shots were 13-8 Florida in the first, 13-11 for the Rangers in the second, and 12-6 for the Rangers in the third. Final shots 33-30 in favor of the Rangers. Power plays, the Rangers go for 2. Florida goes 2 for 4. And that really is the story of the game, that Florida's power play clicked and the Rangers did not. So Florida, who do very, very well when it comes to the special team side of things, it does win them another game tonight. So we'll see if Florida can get on a little bit of a run now. That being said, the Islanders So, are we looking at a comeback of the year candidate? Because really, Philly was playing well, right? Philly was playing really, really well coming into this game. And they played pretty well during this game. Now, Couturier scored from Lindblom at 1 minute and 38 seconds. And yet the Islanders had a large advantage in shots through the first half of that period. But Greiss held as the floor as Philly pushed late in the period. So as the period went along, Philly probably looking at the scoreboard and going, we're ahead 1-0. We got to push here. Provorov would score from Couturier at 19:36. That's a power play goal, and it's 2-0 after one. Second period, Lindblom would add a goal from Farabee and Provorov at 12:20. The Isles got a power play. Elliott robbed Nelson. So 3-0 after two, and Elliott looks really good. The Flyers got a power play early in the third. And again, you're looking at this and going, well, they can end this. And you're wondering, so what's wrong with the Islanders? Is it that Elliott's playing that well, or the Islanders playing that badly? What's going on? Well, Beauvillier scores from Brassard and Nelson at 7:46. And you get the feeling, because it's the Islanders, this game's not over yet. The Islanders pushed at the half. The Flyers were hanging on. There was a power play for the Islanders, and I said they needed to score. Then, with the goaltender not in the net, Provorov says, okay, well, Cale Fleury can do it, so can I. And he makes some saves of his own. So, on that power play, however, one thing leads to another. Barzal scores from Nelson to Brassard at 13:34. So, power play goal for the Islanders, and it's 3-2. And you're thinking, okay, Flyers, tamp it down. However, Beauvillier on a turnover. Absolutely fantastic play by Beauvillier. 17:56, he scores. So we go to overtime, tied at 3. Konechny had a late chance that didn't quite connect. Maybe should have shot earlier or something along those lines, but didn't connect. We go to a shootout. Eberle and Barzal get goals in the shootout, and the Islanders complete the comeback. They win in a shootout 4-3. Greiss saved 28 out of 31. Elliott's 33 out of 36. 3 stars are Barzal, Beauvillier, and Brassard. So if your last name didn't start with B, you're not allowed to be a star of this game. Power plays, both teams went 1 for 3 there. The Flyers outshot them 14-9 in the first. In the second, they were outshot 13-4. In the third, they actually outshot the Islanders 12-11, but they allowed 3 goals. Weird game. In the overtime, the Islanders outshot them 3-1. Final shots 36-31 in favor of the New York Islanders. So, good road game for the Islanders, all things considered, and for the Flyers, they're going to remember this point that they lost. When you look at how close the Metro Division is, how closely bunched together these teams could very well be at the end of the season, that lost point, we could be talking about that in March and April. That being said, moving along, Toronto. All right, so this back-to-back thing, it continues. And they waived Hutchinson. And we saw all this talk about how Hutchinson just doesn't get it done, so we're going to put in Kaskisuo, and he's going to be good. And I was reading articles about how he feels like he's ready, and he's putting up good numbers for the Marlies. The reason they went with Garrett Sparks last year was because he was putting up good numbers with the Marlies. AHL goaltending and NHL goaltending are completely different beasts. Absolutely. There are plenty of American Hockey League goaltenders who've been very good at that level. I'm not going to say anything bad about them because they're good goaltenders, but they didn't reach the NHL level and succeed very much. And there are also goaltenders who didn't have great American Hockey League numbers and for some reason did very well in the NHL. It's bizarre. First period, the Penguins get a power play at around the 5-minute mark, and they scored on it. It's Gensel from Galchenyuk and Malkin at 6:38. They had 6 shots on that power play. The goal was the 6th shot. So Kaskisuo kind of being left hung out to dry. Malkin then scored from Gensel and Rust at 8:44, and the Penguins kept pushing for another one. This was a rough game. It's 2-0 after one. Second period, first minute. It's Cahoon from Marino and Rust at 52 seconds. I have mentioned how Marino looks pretty darn good as a rookie for the Penguins, and I'm mentioning it again here. The Penguins then had no goal they challenged for no goal for interference. The refs gave the Penguins a ton of time to challenge. So it said, nope, this isn't a goal. And looking back earlier to a game from earlier today where there was time given and then it ended up being it wasn't a proper challenge by Tampa and it went the other way. In this case, it's kind of the opposite where the Penguins go for it. The referees, after all that time was given, they end up looking at it and the Cahoon goal counts from Tanev and Johnson at 4:32. There's absolutely no way Kaskisuo could have saved it, but it was deemed that he was knocked out of position by a player that was pushed in there by a Maple Leaf. And that's the kind of luck the Leafs had tonight. McCann would then score from Cahoon and Tanev at 7:28, and it was 5-0. And I wrote on the board, I had to put this up there, good thing Hutchinson's gone. It's a good thing that people are like, nope, it's Hutchinson's fault. And I've seen that. Nope, it's not the coaches. It's the goaltender. So we'll just change things up. Yeah, brutal turnovers were killing Toronto tonight. I thought more than the goaltending. There were too many of these goals that started with a turnover by the Maple Leafs. Spezza then scored from Patan and Barry at 14:49. That makes it 5-1. Third period, the Leafs got an early power play. Didn't go anywhere. In fact, it went the other way. Rust scored from Bluger. That's a shorthanded goal at 3 minutes and 54 seconds. And your final score right there, 6-1 for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The shots, well, we'll get to that. Kaskisuo, 32 saves on 38 shots. He was left in there. Jari, 32 saves on 33 shots. Your 3 stars, Cahoon, Rust, and Malkin. Power plays, Toronto goes 0 for 2. Pittsburgh only got 1. That's all they needed. They also scored that shorthanded goal on one of the 2 power plays Toronto had. Special teams not on Toronto's side tonight. The shots were 19-16 in the first in favor of Pittsburgh. 13-6 Pittsburgh in the second, and in the third, 11-6 for Toronto. Your final shots, 38-33 in favor of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Rough night. Rough night for Toronto fans. And this is getting worse, and it's to the point where we have to look at this and say, you know, Florida's getting better. Boston's still Boston. Montreal looks really good. Tampa, they're going to get their wins. So if that's 4 teams right there, if Toronto continues to struggle like this, they won't be in the playoffs. So that's just how things are going right now for Toronto. We'll see if they can turn it around. Next up, the last one on this board is Anaheim and against St. Louis. And again, because there were 6 games on already, this one didn't get a lot of attention from me until late. Getzlaf scored from Jones and Raquel at 4 minutes, and then only a minute and 41 seconds later, Grant scored from Delorier. Little did we know Grant was in for the game of his life. And it was 2-0 for the Ducks after 1 period. And right away, you can start looking at this as one of those Gibson games. Where and he hasn't had one of these in a little while, but he goes in and goes, I'll do it. Dunn scored from Sanford and Bertuzzo at 3:14 to break the shutout. There weren't any shutouts tonight. And there was a shutout earlier today, but there weren't any in the evening games. Grant then scored a shorthanded goal at 7 minutes and 20 seconds. So St. Louis with a power play could have tied the game, and instead it goes the other way and it becomes a 2-goal lead for Anaheim. The Ducks got a power play. The Blues got a power play late. Neither team scored on the power play, so that shorthanded goal really stands out. Third period, the Blues started the third with a power play. The Ducks pushed at 5 minutes. They were held off from extending their lead. O'Reilly then went to the net. The defense holds. Ryan O'Reilly, I thought, had a good game. I know he's not on the board, but he did. He had a good game. It's not really on him. It's just one of those ones where Gibson decided, yeah, I'll just put the team on my back then. 6:45 though before the first whistle in that period, apparently. Gibson looks like he's back into stealing games. The Ducks had a too many men on the ice penalty with 6:45 left. Of course, no goal for St. Louis there. The Blues pulled the goalie with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. What that leads to is Getzlaf, who could have hit the net, passing it off. Grant would end up getting the empty netter. It's his first career hat trick. Raquel and Getzlaf with the assists at 18 minutes and 21 seconds. And that ices it. 4-1 is your final in favor of Anaheim. 4 was a very popular number in tonight's scores. I think I ended up needing 7. I only had 5 magnets made at the start of the day, so I had to make more during tonight's games. But, that's fine. I'm getting an idea for just how many of them I'm going to need of each number, and I should have enough to make this work. Today there were 15 games. We don't see 15 games in one day again until April. So Thank you, NHL, for not doing this often. Gibson saved 37 out of 38. Binnington saved 21 out of 24. So Jordan Binnington got Binnington tonight. 3 stars were Grant, Gibson, and Getzlaf. The shots were 11-10 for St. Louis in the first, 15-10 St. Louis in the second, and 12-5 for the Blues in the third. Final shots, 38-25. Power plays, Anaheim 0 for 2, St. Louis 0 for 4. And yeah, so the Ducks avoid dropping below 500. They go to 10-9-2. And they were obviously well aware that they had San Jose in the rearview mirror, and they wanted to keep them there. So the Ducks haven't given up, and there are other teams in the Pacific that are vulnerable as well. So the Pacific is still really, really wide open. Despite some teams being cold right now, it's still a really wide open division. That being said, I have to change boards for one last time. What happened here? I'm not understanding this. And I watched a lot more. I actually watched more of this than I watched of the Ducks and the Blues because I was bewildered by what I was watching here. The Chicago Blackhawks went in tonight, and to say they got revenge on Nashville would be an understatement. So the Predators were up 6-1 early when it comes to the shots, and they were in control. It looked like this was their game. And then it goes the other way. Gustafsson scores from Taves at 6:33. I think that was the second shot that Chicago registered in that period. Kubalik then scored from Doc late in that period at 18:04 to make it 2-0 Chicago. What's going on? Second period, early, Seabrook. Yeah, that Seabrook got a goal from Kane and Strome at 1:51. That goal was brutal. And the thing was, I was watching the Nashville feed, and they were trying to make it sound like, well, that might have hit something on the way in, or it kind of bounced, and it's like, that was a goal that you have to save. Granlund then had a chance that was denied at 11:39. Camp scores from Mata and Shaw. That was a good goal, but it was also the end of the night for Rinne. UC Saros goes in, and the Hawks are kind of evening up the shots a little bit after that fourth goal because they're probably thinking, wow, we're ahead 4-0. We can push for more if we want. Third period, early on, Yossi scored from Duchesne and Granlund at 3:40. And bless those Nashville fans. They were really loud and cheering and doing the whole "you suck" thing. And it's impressive when you're down 4-1. And Leonard then robbed Bonino twice on the same shift. So Leonard playing pretty well. And it felt like the Hawks were hanging on at that point, and their best player was Robin Leonard because he was. However, the puck goes the other way, and Kane scored from DeBrincat at 9:09. Yep, it's 5-0. Predators were up 12-3 in shots in that third period at that stage. And then the fourth shot from Chicago, that went in the net too. It's Nylander from Taves and Saad at 14:02. Nylander's not done. He scores from Saad at 17:28. And the score is Saad at 7-1 at that point. Yossi then scored from Turris and Ellis at 18:51. I agree, that was terrible. And that made it 7-2. So that just made sure I couldn't use one of my one magnets. I have 6 of them on the board over there. I clearly have made too many magnets of the number 1. Clearly way too many. 7-2. And that's your final. And again, bless the Nashville fans for cheering when that goal went in. I don't know. Leonard saved 39 out of 41. He looked fantastic. Rinne saved 10 out of 14. Saros saved 7 out of 10. To be honest, both goaltenders were letting in some questionable goals tonight. Your 3 stars are Leonard, Kubalik, and Kane. Yep. This was an amazing game. I don't know what happened. Both teams only had one power play. They didn't score on them. The power play had nothing to do with this result. The shots are 12-9 in favor of Nashville in the first, 14-8 in favor of Nashville in the second, 15-7 Nashville in the third. Final shots 41-24. I can only imagine how ugly some plus-minus rankings were from this game tonight. Again, while people don't like the plus-minus number, in-game, it shows you who's having a good night and who's having a rough one. And tonight, I think there's a lot of Nashville players who likely had a really, really, really rough night. This is the second time now in, 10 days that Nashville's given up kind of an ugly score. I have some concerns about their goaltending now, which is weird because both Rinne and Saros, you shouldn't have that concern. But for me, I kind of have that now. That's kind of the world we live in. It's really, really bizarre. I can't figure it out. Can you figure it out? Because I don't know what happened here. That to me, just nothing on that board makes any sense on that part of it. We'll get to the part that did make sense. Vancouver against Colorado. These guys, Colorado comes out with the win. Now, if you're a glass half full fan, you'll say they came back. They forced overtime. If you're glass half empty, you're going, they've won one out of how many? Ugh. Early Canucks power play, the Avs killed it. They got a power play after that. They didn't score on that one, but shortly thereafter, Belmar scores from Johnson and Zadorov. So at 6:56, Nikita Zadorov gets on the board. He's back in the game. The Avs are up 1-0. And I put the Canucks are chasing another one. They've had the first goal against in 14 out of 21 games. I think the only team that's been worse for scoring first goals in a game has been Toronto. I do. I think Toronto's spotted teams leads more than Canucks, but those two are right neck and neck with each other. The Canucks got a power play. The Avs were out shooting them 8-1, however, since it was 3-0 in the Canucks' favor early in that period. But before the period's over, Gaudette from Levo and Edler at 18:27 on the power play. That second unit should be the first unit, and by the end of this game, that's exactly what happened. That second unit is so much better with the puck than the first unit. So it's 1-1 after one. Second period, and Bibeau was corralling the puck at 6:06. Am I allowed to say Antoine Bibeau had a good game? He wasn't bad. I mean, he didn't end up having a fantastic save percentage, but I thought he was better than Demko. I did. McKinnon scored on the power play from Makar and Burakovsky at 7 minutes and 51 seconds. About 4 minutes later at 11:28, Kadri scores on a beautiful pass from Cale Makar, and I put underneath Makar there with little stars, Calder. I can't see how anybody but Cale Makar gets the Calder right now. I just don't see it. The Avs went back to the power play. Demko denied Kadri, and then there was a penalty against the Avs that made it 4-on-4. Horvat, I felt, was really fighting the puck tonight. The Avs go to another power play. They didn't score on it. However, Vancouver scores on theirs. Gaudette from Berchi and Levo at 19:58. So with 2 seconds left in the period, they scored. And notice, again, it's the second unit with Gaudette on it that gets the power play goal. And Berchi's on the board again. So does Berchi force his way into staying in the lineup? Has Gaudette made enough of an argument to stay in the lineup? We'll stay tuned as guys get healthy or more guys get injured. Third period, with the Canucks down 3-2, they pushed it around the 2-minute mark. The Canucks got a power play. Second unit started that power play, which was a smart move, but Bibeau held. And then the puck goes the other way, and it's Burakovsky from McKinnon and Makar at 6 minutes and 9 seconds. So Makar with 3 assists already at this point in the game. Bibeau then stopped Virtanen. Virtanen tried going high, and Bibeau stopped him. The Canucks drew another penalty, which then turned to 4-on-4. So they drew a penalty, and then while they had the goaltender pulled, Pettersson takes a trip, and that evens it up. So it was a 4-on-4, and I put up there no luck tonight for the Canucks. And up till that point, it really wasn't. They pulled the goalie with 3 minutes and 44 seconds left, which is crazy early, but it worked. At 17:23, Edler scores from Hughes and Miller. So it's 4-3. They pulled the goalie again. And then at 19 minutes, it's Brock Besser with his 9th of the year from Pettersson and Hughes. So Quinn Hughes gets a couple of helpers, and we're in a tie game. It goes to overtime. It does not last. McKinnon winds it up at center on a pass from Makar. Makar got it from Compher. 27 seconds is all it takes for McKinnon to put it away with his second goal of the game, his 3rd point overall. And Makar just puts up 4 assists tonight. So 5-4 is your final in overtime in favor of the Colorado Avalanche. Bibeau saved 28 out of 32. Demko saved 18 out of 23. Your 3 stars are McKinnon, Gaudette, and Makar. Power plays, Colorado 1 for 5, Vancouver 2 for 6. The shots were 8-5 Colorado in the first, 11-8 Vancouver in the second, 16-6 Vancouver in the third, and then 1-0 in favor of Colorado in the overtime. Final shots 32-23 in favor of Vancouver. And yes, they were wearing their 80s jerseys tonight, 80s/90s, and people were all excited. I guess 90s because the 80s ones were orange and gold. They weren't red and yellow, so red and yellow means 93s when those came in. All I remember is when they had the skate jersey, they lost a lot too. So for people who, they had better luck with the skate jersey, not really. Their most successful era has been since they went to the Orca. Not initially, but eventually they got there. Anyways, Colorado comes out of tonight with a win. Key win for them. And they put more points between themselves and Nashville. And we'll see how things go for them from here. All right, moving along to the last game of the night. And it's San Jose at home against Detroit. Whew. This one was hard to get through. Because there were so few chances at points of this game. Good defense, I guess. A lot of shot blocking, I guess. Jones looked really good early. The Wings were ahead in shots, and I was thinking, so is this a trap game for San Jose then? Does it qualify because San Jose's below 500? There was a scrum at around 13:27, not around. I put the exact time on, so I know when it was. Perlini then missed a chance wide. Brendan Perlini had some really good chances tonight. Just couldn't put it in the net. LeBanc would then score from Couture and Simic at 18:59. That made it 1-0. Then early in the second, it's Vlasic from Couture and LeBanc at 1 minute and 11 seconds. It was a shot from the point, and it was one that I felt Howard probably should have had to make it 2-0. But 13 seconds later, Athanasiou from Fabry and Hicketts. Great pass by Robbie Fabry. 1 minute and 24 seconds. So Fabry continued his hot streak tonight. He was very good for Detroit. Might have been their best forward overall. Sharks then hemmed the Wings in after that 2-1 goal. They were pushing for another. The Wings got a power play after they killed one. And Fabry looked absolutely great. He really did. Perlini was then robbed by Jones. Perlini had a good chance and was robbed. Hirose then scored a goal from Perlini and Bowie at 11:34. Notice how much we're mentioning names of guys who've been brought in by Steve Yzerman in Perlini and Fabry. That attests to just how much he's already making a difference with this roster. Even though the results aren't there yet, you can see where he's heading with this. Hirose from Perlini and Bowie was a nice one too, because I believe that's Taro Hirose's first of the year. The Sharks went to the power play shortly thereafter, and Carlson scored on that power play from LeBanc and Couture at 12:32. So less than a minute after Detroit fights their way back to tie it, San Jose's back in the lead. And the roughest part of this was Detroit was out shooting them and out chancing them badly. The Wings went to the power play. There was lots of whistles at this stage of the game. Third period, neither team was getting a lot of shots all of a sudden. There was 9 shots in the third period in total. But one of those shots was Athanasiou from Filppula and Fabry at 15:45. So Athanasiou with his second goal of the game, Fabry with his second helper. Filppula had a very good game as well. And so, yeah, Howard then robbed Couture to force overtime. In overtime, Larkin had a breakaway that missed high. The Wings got a power play at 1 minute and 39 seconds, the whole timeout thing, and didn't work. San Jose killed it off. And then in the shootout, LeBanc ends up potting the winner. Howard saved 16 out of 19. Jones saved 25 out of 28. That means he had an .893 save percentage tonight, which is actually higher than what he was at for the season coming into tonight. Your 3 stars. See, this is what happens when I'm tired. This is what happens. Not shots. That's where I put stars. So 3 stars. LeBanc, Couture, and Jones. I'm actually surprised all 3 of them were Sharks. When it's a shootout, it should be at least one member of the Wings. And I would give it to either Athanasiou or Fabry. So honorary star of the night, I'll give that to Athanasiou. Power plays, Detroit 0 for 3. San Jose 1 for 3. Shots were 9-8 San Jose in the first. 11-5 Detroit in the second. 5-4 San Jose in the third. In the overtime, there was 1 shot, and it was by Detroit. Like I said, Larkin's shot missed high. 28-19 were the total shots tonight. It was kind of snoozy. This is why when the Detroit announcers, after Athanasiou's goal, said, this is the last game going tonight. Maybe we saved the best for last. I said out loud, nope. No, you didn't. Nope. No, not the best for last. So there you go. Another Saturday in the books. 15 games all done. And I have to say, once this game was almost over, and I looked at all the boards, I went, oh, I made it. Because at that point, I can kind of breathe sigh of relief. That, all right, I've documented as much as I can, and there's a sense of accomplishment and relief there. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts regarding tonight's games in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And a thanks goes to Adam Anderson and Adam West for continuing to support the channel on Patreon. So I do thank Adam regularly. The second Adam, the first Adam, it's my first time thanking him. So thanks for your support on Patreon. And thank you guys for watching all my videos. and or whichever ones you choose. I don't expect people to watch all of them all the time. And hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thanks for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.